Hey, welcome to today's video. I'm Rick Chapo with DMCAAgentService.com. So just cutting a quick video, taking a look at a headline that floated by that was of interest. Pretty shocking headline. And that is that Google received 75 million DMCA takedown notices last month. Yes, 75 million. A huge number. That's what, 2.5 million a day, something like that. Oh my Lord. So the month in question was March 2019. And apparently that number is pretty consistent. It wasn't just that March was a anomaly. Apparently those numbers are not only consistent month to month, but are growing. And it brings up something that I wanted to emphasize for you if you're trying to comply with the DMCA, because a lot of people get confused over it. And that is the duty to act expeditiously. So if you have a website or an app, it can be as large as Google, or it can be, small little gardening blog or something of that sort. Doesn't matter. If a DMCA takedown notice comes in, you have a duty to act expeditiously in evaluating and reacting to it. So what does expeditiously mean? Well, Congress didn't define it. so there's been a bit of an argument over it, but courts have generally worked out that they're going to look at two factors. One, the amount of user generated content that you're handling, and two, the number of complaints you receive. So if we have a little blog, let's say on, gardening and how to grow tomatoes, and it receives, a few comments, per blog post, it publishes maybe one or two blog posts a month, and you receive one complaint, well, that's a pretty low volume of user-generated content and obviously a pretty low number of complaints. And so the court's going to expect you to act within 48 to 72 hours, probably closer to 48, because it's not a big burden on you to do so. Now, if you've ever submitted a DMCA takedown notice to Google, you know they don't react that quickly. And so are they violating the law? And the answer is no. Courts have said, in a situation where you're dealing with a huge, company that's moving huge amounts of user-generated data and, it's receiving large volumes of complaints, well, obviously we're going to give them more time. Google's not doing something nefarious here, anything of that sort. 75 million DMCA takedown notices is a ton of data to move. They have to have some kind of program to try to figure out, which ones are valid, which ones are not, and a whole host of different things. I mean, it's just a ton of complaints. And Facebook doesn't get this number of DMCA takedown notices, but it gets a lot. So does Twitter. All of the big social media sites, all the big user-generated content sites, they're moving big data. So this is hardly a surprise. How long do they have? Well, of course, they're going to be pretty flexible, but I think with Google, they'd probably give them a couple weeks, maybe even a month. I mean, 75 million is just a huge number. As long as Google can show a reasonable effort to deal with those complaints, then I think they're probably going to be fine. But if you submit a complaint to Google and they don't respond within a couple of days, don't freak out. They're not doing something nefarious in relation to your complaint. They probably just haven't even looked at it yet, or haven't run it through whatever program they're running through to try to make the determination as to whether the complaint is valid. So to give you an idea of where things are headed with these complaints, the 75 million DMCA takedown notices in March, if we compare it to 2014, Google received only 345 million complaints for the entire year. And yes, I just used the word only with 345 million. But that's about 4 months worth of complaints here in 2019. So you can see the numbers expanding rapidly. And, if the trend continues, well, Google's facing about 4 billion DMCA takedown notices in 2019. That is a staggering number. And it raises somewhat of a bigger issue about, if we're getting that number of complaints, maybe the European changes to copyright law or something that should be considered in the US. I mean, at some point, when you reach a number like 75 million, it suggests that there's a flaw in the system and perhaps copyright should be addressed a bit differently. But we'll just kind of have to see how that works out, I imagine. So anyways, that's the big news for the day. 75 million DMCA takedown notices in March 2019. Whew, boy, glad I'm not handling those. So thanks for watching. Have yourself a good one.